for Daryl's boy.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. It's Friday, and I'm looking forward to a quiet weekend.
Yep. Happy birthday the day after.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
How'd you spend your birthday, Kevin? Anything good?
Yeah, trying to catch up from Japan, to be honest. We've been in Japan and just trying to catch up,
Yeah, busy guy.
First, let's talk about the Fend movement.
Yeah, I mean, James, through my travels basically around the country, I've started to, the stories keep coming out. Everyone's affected, family members, partners, employees, friends. Everyone seems to have that story to tell right now, of what's going on and, of what's going on in their lives and how everyone's been affected by opioids. I just thought, and then it was approached to me from a technology company out of Australia called iPug, that they had some success with a child injury initiative, that they built an app in Australia and took it to new parents and young parents about how to reduce childhood injuries. So we kind of blended it all together. It uses the idea of gamification because we all like to play games now, society as a whole, but educating people through a process of learning and learning and then rewarding them. We're using a Warped Tour as a test case model that we hope to take on to a national level through other forms of entertainment, music, industry. So we're using Warped Tour while we're out there this summer as well as now. We're very lucky to have started this 5 weeks ago when we announced the tour, and there's 5,000 people signed up for the app, or 4,000 people have signed up for the app already.
Now, can you get that app? Is that on like the iPhone, the App Store? Where can you get that app?
It's in the App Store. It's called Preventum, Preventum, Fend. It's full energy, no drugs. The website's www.wearefend.org. And it is in the App Store and Android and iPhone.
What inspired it, Kevin?
I mean, really, James, it was me traveling and hearing everyone's stories.
Yeah.
Knowing people that are affected by them, hearing the stories, knowing so many people that have been affected by them. I'm on the board of Music Cares, and seeing that how the transition's gone from maybe alcohol to opioids. Alcohol is still a huge issue, but opioids now, and then learning more, and starting to see people like Tom Petty had it in the system, fentanyl. Prince had it in the system. Michael Jackson had it in the system. So I'm starting to put a lot of pieces together in my mind of, the show must go on in the music business. So for every lead singer, there's a band, there's a crew, there's management, there's technicians. And I know from being a fact that, from traveling and getting hurt on the road, we do things to keep the show going that probably aren't the best for us. And now some of these drugs are so addictive, and finding out that you can become addicted in 4 days, 4 to 5 days, your brain can start changing over to become addicted on this for a certain segment of the population. That while maybe a few people still listen to me, I thought it was time to start this, and we're starting to get some traction.
Yeah, this is a great thing. I actually love this. What breaks my heart is everybody. It doesn't matter if you're homeless, you're poor, you're rich. I'm losing friends left and right over the last 4 years, it seems like it. So I love that you're building this and just making awareness.
And it's completely, that's what I say. It's bipartisan. It's affecting every realm of the population. So like the crack cocaine population, people would say, hey, that's not affecting us. We're white, middle-class people, when it was just a ghetto drug, That's
Yeah.
how people looked at it. But it's affecting everyone. And to be 100% honest, when they put Kellyanne Conway in charge of the opioid crisis, I knew we were in trouble.
I know. I listened to one of the podcasts you did a little while back this year, talking about the transition of music in the industry, and just the web world to the physical world of live music to people just sitting at their computer. I personally, I'm a live performer. What do you think? How do you think the industry changed since when you started the Warped Tour? Even back to the day, I watched James Dixon play Mountain Song the other day, and I loved it. And I go, how did you deal with the James Dixons? And now, from 1995, even before the Warped Tour, to now, the last year of the Warped Tour, what's your perspective of the next step?
Well, the Warped Tour used to fit as a tool within when we used to be able to sell records, and you would go sell records, and you would hopefully, sell enough records to recoup on your deal, so you were actually making a payment off of those records. And that Warped Tour was a part of that process. So sometimes, bands could look at it and say, hey, we might take less money up front to play Warped Tour because we're part of a community that we know will draw a lot of people. So we're going to take a little less money for ourselves, but we know we'll sell more merchandise. We know that we're going to be exposing ourselves to more people, so our next tours will do better. So what ends up happening now is, you've got the major labels. They're just about hit machines. They're basically becoming accountants for streaming. They're trying to they'll invest money in singles to get them up the charts and sell singles. Independent labels and artists, you got to look at it as we need to create content that we're going to sell over a long time, because streaming is probably the end game. We could have said downloads, but if you invested in downloads 5 years ago, you'd be broke right now. But where are we going to go with streaming? Streaming is kind of, unless they embed it in our head or do something like a chip in our head, or I don't know, think about music and it starts playing, and now we got Alexa in our brain. Streaming is probably here for now. So people are investing in long term, thinking it as a mutual fund. So even like a label like Side One Dummy, we realized that putting out, running a company of physical releases we were losing money putting out those physical releases the way we were. So even recently we got rid of our building. We're working out of a garage. We're focusing more on music placement, getting it into films and TV. We're having someone work full time with Spotify and iTunes, trying to keep us in playlists. But we're not, to have 5 people working a physical release, you just can't sell enough physical product to make that sense of that anymore.
How do you feel about this year with, I know it's a harsh question maybe, Pumpkin Republic?
How do I feel about this year?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be, it's all about going out and celebrating what we've done, trying to move to the future, have a good time, having you out there and letting these indie bands play. We're going to have a lot of local bands between, some of the stuff you've done and what we're doing with the Little Ernie Ball stage again. We're bringing the Orange stage back. That's, investing in local music. That's letting local bands play. We've always been part of that. I'm planning on touring and having a good time. We're going to have lots of guests come in and out, play a show here and there. And
let's talk about the youngest band on the Warped Tour this summer.
Oh, my God, yeah. So they're 11 and 12. What, 11 and 12, James?
Color Killer in Boston.
Yeah, and they're like 11 years old, right?
No, even younger, 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah, so I mean, we're it's going to be a fun time. I'm just going to go out and hopefully have a good time. If the weather gods look good on us, then it's going to be a great summer. If the weather, if the weather gods beat down on us all summer, it'll be still a good tour, but it's going to be physically draining and tired, and it will reconfirm my reason to stop going on the road for 2 months every year.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the famous word stowaways on the Warped Tour.
Well, you were one of the original ones there, James. I know you were one.
I think I might have wrote some of the playbooks on it.
I think you followed around in a Greyhound bus, and I should have probably just had him keep going, to be honest. To take you back. But, somehow you and some of these people who stowed away on the tour, have endeared themselves to it, because I do believe that's the spirit of where it all comes from. people who want to be part of something. And, I do have to learn to say no at times and tell people to go home, or if they're not in a safe situation. But, letting people sell CDs in parking lots was always, people said, why do you do that? I go, if they're that passionate and this is their outlet. And I think Warped Tour lines were one of the last places you could actually sell a CD in America. I don't want to I didn't encourage it, and I didn't discourage it. And then sadly, we had a couple kids that where their passion was to follow the Warped Tour, and they did it, and they were in a car accident and were killed. And tragic, but they were chasing their dream.
It's hard. But then you have also the Mayday Parades, the Jeff Rosenstock.
You have the main Mayday Parade all started out selling in those parking lots, and now they're playing up on the Journey stage this summer.
Yeah, it is really a journey. I want to touch on the teaching side of your world and that decision.
Vision?
Yeah, I'm going to go do the Warped Tour.
It's always been, 3 prongs. Music, philanthropy, and education. To be honest, the vision of where we're going afterwards and what I'm doing is leaning more towards the philanthropy and education side. The music side will need to figure itself out. The new music business, I've tried to encourage it and try to help and try to, be part of it. I think maybe some of the way I've thought about the music business has changed. And maybe, it's time for me to focus on the other 2 aspects of what Warped Tour was always about.
So let's talk about foster care, adoption.
Yeah. Well, that's been my big thing. I was adopted, along with my 3 brothers and sisters were adopted at different mothers. So we don't the history of my background. So sometimes this argument, definitely anyone knows that I'm a very pro-choice person. I did some of the largest benefits for pro-choice, the first ones in Los Angeles. I helped produce, but people got really upset when we all of a sudden had a Students for Choice who were out on the road, who was an advocate for adoption. There was all of a sudden, and that's what kind of pissed me off too, because you have to have counter opinions. That's what punk rock was, counter opinions, being willing to have those kind of debates face to face and things that if you only hang around, that's what's got our country in the problems it is in right now, because people only hang around with people that believe what they believe in versus willing to branch out. And understanding, anyone knows that I was not a Trump supporter or what his goals were, but you know what? I understand the people that voted for him, and I can understand their frustrations and some of the things they went through. But you know what? If you only watch Fox News, you're going to believe what they say. If you only watch CNN, you're going to believe what they say. When I grew up, you got your news from 3 different sources. You got CBS, NBC, ABC, and we had a local channel. LA, we were lucky we had 2 of them. And everyone watched the news from there and got whatever truth from the news there. And then if you were lucky, you got you read the local paper. Maybe if you were really worldly, you read the LA Times if you lived out in the Valley. And then, New York Times was like, oh my God, you saw a New York Times or a Boston Globe only when you traveled. So right now, everyone gets their truth from a small source. So I'm encouraging people, you need to go get as much broad thing. And that, for me, a lot of that education I got was in the parking lots of Warped Tour, talking to people and traveling the world over the last 27 summers.
So let's talk about this community side of things. When everybody keeps asking you, I've heard many interviews with you, and a lot of people keep asking you that question. Why aren't you passing the torch?
Because you know what? I've done everything I can under the platform that Warped is, and I think Warped stood for something. I don't think some people will believe this, but I had the discussion with someone today who said because I said there's 20 people running around saying they're going to start their own Warped Tours right now. And I said, one thing none of them get is that 90% of what Warped Tour was about wasn't about making money. We were allowed to make money, and in the punk rock world, we didn't, and this could be argued by some, but we never took advantage of the community that I was in. I come from the world of punk rock, and you weren't allowed to exist if you took advantage of it. We gave back as much as we took, or more, just like Fat Mike has and Brett Gurewitz has. we put back into the community. That's why we're still around. So whoever starts their next incarnation of Warp next summer, because of course people are going to see people think I drive away with pickup trucks full of money every night. You know what? I've been very lucky to figure out how I can live, but it has allowed me to do other things, like having a brewery and all these other things. I was joking that I made almost as much money selling the brewery as I did in 37 years of music. And then the counter to that was they said, you made the money, you were allowed to make the money in music because you interned in music for 37 years. You know? So, you know, it is what you do, and it's how you broaden it out and expand it, and that's what I'm working on right now, because I've always some people, you know, I don't pack up on August 5th on a Warped Tour and go to the beach for 8 months. We get right back to work to put the next one on. And I've had all these other festivals and things. So it's not defending yourself, but I just want people to know that it's not easy to do this kind of thing.
Local stages, Florida, Texas, and Buffalo, New York. How did this happen? So we can address every other band in America going, this happened for these weird reasons.
Because they actually still have a strong community. They still have a strong community. They have a community out there. If they can actually support it and support each other, they don't bash each much online. The local community actually supports each other, and you know what? We'll support the local community whenever we can.
That's amazing. Amazing on that one. Amazing on that one.
And that's such a huge thing too, Kevin. This thing, myself and a few other guys from Buffalo area started about a year ago called the West New York Music Scene, and the whole idea was to put out these physical compilations, you know, all over, regardless of your recording ability or how it sounded. And we partnered with local businesses, and we've got, you know, within 4 or 5 days, we had people from Albany and Buffalo and Corning, and it's branching now out of state, where bands out of state are looking and they're reaching out to us. And how do we get involved in this? And regardless how much your money and background, everybody's just supporting to like put each other to another level.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it's about. And then, you know, the people that don't support each other don't need any, they just need to be ignored, basically, in the local community. You know, you need to find good, solid people, good musicians, good things, because ultimately, you're all musicians.
Right.
And and that's what I always said, whether you play country or you're a hip-hop artist or a reggae artist, and that's what we brought together in the Warp parking lot. When people met, they never prejudged each other. They came out there and got to know each other. Now, often people are judging each other online without meeting them face to face, and that's why I've invited anyone. And when people attack me online, I say, "Well, come down and why don't you come meet me? And then afterwards, if you still choose to attack me, that's your right. But just do it without meeting someone face to face. It's completely wrong and cowardly."
Mental health on tour.
Mental health on tour. Well, you know, we travel with a counselor that mostly is an addiction recovery counselor, but
Okay.
we do have people that are there to talk to people and people that will help, you know, when needed.
Cool.
You know?
I'm looking forward to that, actually.
All right.
All right. I think we got everything.
Thank you very much, Kevin. It was a pleasure talking to you.
An amazing experience in Buffalo. Cardboard Homestead, Toy Box Brigade, Lucky 33, County Kings, all in the cinder, and this weird band called the Squid Biologists, which nobody's ever seen before. We're in for an experience. And the cool thing is, the last year when we did this stage, it was awesome, and a lot of people came back like days and months later going, "Hey man, that was the coolest stage at the Warped Tour. Like, I saw that stage. Me and my husband stopped, or me and my daughter stopped. So somebody stopped, and they saw, oh shit, that's my neighbor. That's the guy that delivers the papers. That's the locals."
I still have people talking to me about that stage, and I've even had a couple shows come back like that's that band Wyatt Coyne that I saw at Warped Tour. I want them on my show. We've had 2 or 3 shows pop up because of that last year.
And it's amazing. It's amazing, right? It's amazing.